Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kaj NYGREN. I'm the CTO of MAG Interactive. We are a game development company from Stockholm in Sweden. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the topic is like handling extreme growth, or how we managed to scale Ruzzle, our game Ruzzle, from like zero users to like 50 million users in a very short period of time. So it's kind of like ties into like the previous presentation that were like the 5 deadly sins, because I think we actually avoided them. So I guess a lot of you in here are like game developers. So it's like a game developer conference, and everybody like wants to hit it big on the App Store. Everybody wants to have like a big hit. But well, I'm sorry, but the harsh reality is that most games fail. There's a lot of games out there, but most games, when you release them, they actually fail. Which is a bit odd, because if you think about it, I mean, you have like 2 billion smartphones and tablets out there, and like App Store and Google Play, they makes it very easy to download stuff. But the thing is, like, people are rather lazy. So, I mean, they talk to friends and ask friends about which games are cool and all that. And other than that, they just like download the games that are on like on the top 5, top 10 charts. So the vast majority of games are hardly downloaded, and a few games are getting the vast majority of all the downloads. Now, on top of that, if you are very lucky and you happen to have like a social media viral phenomenon and become like a social media hit, then you will be like off the charts. You will have an extreme amount of downloads in a very short period of time. I guess the most recent example of that is that silly little game Flappy Birds, that more or less came out of nowhere, and then within a short period of time, like a few days, he had like millions and millions and millions of downloads. Now, that is unlikely to happen. I mean, that very rarely happens, but it might happen. And that makes it a bit difficult if you're like building a game and you have some type of like mobile backend. It might be that it's like a player versus player game, or it might be that that you have some type of downloadable content, or that you have to send push notifications to users at certain period of instances of time. Because the most likely scenario is that you put your game out there and you will have a few users, but not that many. But then suddenly something can happen and boom, you have tons of users. So how do you prepare for that? That's a good question. And the thing is, the reason I'm here to talk to you about this today is that what happened to like Flappy Birds a few weeks ago kind of like happened to one of our games about a year ago. We have a game called Ruzzle. It's a word game. So it's like a set of 16 letters in a tile pattern, and you compete against each other in finding as many words as possible in 2 minutes. So as I said, it's like player versus player. It's got like leaderboards, in-game chatting, friend list, achievements, things like this. It's also cross-platform, so it's available on iOS, on Android and Windows Phone. So given that, obviously we have some type of like backend to handle all of that. Now, we launched in March 2012, and almost immediately sort of like became like a viral phenomenon in Sweden. So it took us 9 days to become #1 on App Store in Sweden. So, and you had all these kids playing in the schoolyards, and you had like Swedish celebrities tweeting about that this was like the new plague or something like that. So that was pretty cool, since we're a Swedish company. And pretty soon after that, we also hit it big in the Netherlands here. So we became #1 here and got lots of downloads from here. We also got #1 in Norway and Denmark. So we got a lot of downloads, but I mean, to be honest, I mean, these are small countries. So we got something like, I don't know, 5, 6 million downloads. We're doing pretty well. But the thing is, what happened in December 2012, we actually became like a viral hit in Italy and in the States at the same time. Now, this was actually pretty cool because, like in the States, we had like social and we had like analytics, so we could follow where people were playing. So we know that the whole phenomenon started in a very small little town in Tennessee, where people were playing against each other. And then we could see that after a few days, people were like playing in neighboring towns in Tennessee, and then it spread to the capital of Tennessee, and it spread to the neighboring states, and then it just spread all through America like a viral disease. And kind of the same thing happened in Italy as well. Now, when this happened, that obviously affects the number of downloads you have, to put it mildly. This was our download chart. Now, the thing to notice here is that the flat line at the bottom is actually pretty healthy, like 30,000 downloads per day that we had previously. But then within a couple of weeks, it just grew exponentially and like hit close to 1 million downloads per day. And this is like an online game where people play against each other, so everybody was hitting our backend. Now, when you see charts like this, that's typically when like the marketing department, they just go like 2 thumbs up and go out and drink champagne. Whereas like the server department, they typically just keep their fingers crossed, pray to God, and just hope that everything just sticks together. Because, I mean, if you have like exponential increase in downloads, you will have an exponential increase in traffic. So, just to give you an idea of the kind of traffic that we had, as I said, we added almost 1 million players per day. We handled, on the server side, about 100 million games being played every day. We sent out 150 million push notifications per day. We had a sustained load on the servers during peak hours of roughly 30,000 requests per second incoming. And to tell you the truth, I mean, we did have some problems. We had to like tweak the architecture a bit. We had to do some optimizations. But for the most part, everything just scaled beautifully. So how did we do that? And what are like the key things that you need to think about when you do your backend solution so you can actually do this? That's what I'm going to talk to you about. Right. First of all, you need to, based on the needs you have, you need to essentially try to select the like backend solution that you're using. So, I mean, if you're doing like a simple, I don't know, something strictly on iOS, for example, and you're not concerned about cross-platform playing between iOS and Android, you might have some very simple like player versus player functionality, but you're not interested in doing like sophisticated matchmaking, then you might be well off with like what Game Center provides. It's very rudimentary, but it's free and it scales. Likewise, I mean, Google have their Play services. That's actually cross-platform, but they do require users to have like a G+ account, and you might not want to force that on your players. And it's also rather rudimentary. Now, moving up the ladder in like complexity and also flexibility, there are like various mobile backends as a service providers, things like Parse, that has that like ready-made functionality for client-server communication, things like that. A lot of them also have like built-in analytics that you can use. Then, if you want even more flexibility, there is like Google App Engine, which is like an API on top of like a virtual server solution that has access to a lot of the internal stuff that Google themselves are using, such as their NoSQL database like Bigtable, things like this. That's actually what we're using, so I'm going to talk more about that later. Then if you need even more specialized things, I mean, if you're doing like real-time gaming and you need to have like build real-time servers. You can always like build a lot of stuff yourself, and then you just put it in the cloud, run on like Amazon or Compute Engine, things like that. That's a lot more complexity, but you have even more flexibility. So while doing this, you also need to do your homework on the economics. You essentially need to estimate what type of cost you will have per daily active user. You also need to try to do some type of like income estimations. You need to estimate what kind of revenue you think you will get per daily active user as well, so that you know that whatever service solution you're doing, it's not like eating up the profit margin that you have. You should also make sure that the cost adapts to traffic. I mean, first of all, I mean, you should, if you do like a cloud solution, that will adapt in like performance. So if you have more incoming traffic, it will just adapt. But you should also make sure that contracts and things like that are made such that costs also go up when you need more capacity, and the costs go down afterwards. Also, there's like a lot of like third-party solutions out there that provide things like analytics, bug tracking, push notification services, things like that. A lot of these companies, they charge you per monthly active user. So if you have a game that has like a vast audience, but you're not earning that much from each like player, then these services might become prohibitively expensive. And they might not be in the beginning, but I mean, if you suddenly get a hit and you have like tons of users, it might turn out that you have to pay them a lot, where a lot of these functionalities might be provided in other ways, and it might actually be quite easy to do it themselves, like push notifications for iOS is actually very simple. And lastly, you actually should verify all these assumptions before you go live. So do it like a trial launch somewhere in a small market. You actually verify that the game is good, that's one thing, but you should also verify all these metrics so that you know that you can run this thing on a large scale without a problem. Now, analytics. Nowadays, when you launch a game, it's not that you just launch it and then you just forget about it, it's there. Gaming is actually more like a service today, so it's vital that you know how well the game performs. It's vital that you know what your players are doing, who's playing, who's not, who's leaving, why they're leaving, etc. So you have to make sure that you have like an analytics solution that can capture all of that. So you need to capture like the D1, D7 retentions, daily active users, monthly, etc. And also, I mean, if you have like a free-to-play game, it's much, much more complex than that, because then you also need to track and analyze like virtual budgets. So if people earn coins by doing things, you need to know that they don't earn too much, or that if they earn too little, things like this. It's also vital that you can handle like A/B tests, because you need to test everything. So if you do a change in the game, you need to know that that actually makes the game better and not worse. So you need to be able to handle like cohorts. And the important thing here is that the analytics need to scale as well. Because if you suddenly have like a mobile hit, you will have like tons of traffic coming in, and you will generate tons and tons and tons of events that you need to analyze. So that solution needs to handle that as well. And you can't really sample the data, because if you sample the data, then you will lose details. So if you, for example, want to track, because I mean, sampling would otherwise be the easy way out. Say that, okay, I just take 1% of the traffic and analyze that. But the thing is, I mean, if you want to like analyze like an emerging market somewhere, that data will like drown in all the other traffic that you get in. So you can't really do that. You need to analyze every single event that you got. Now, the last thing here is like responsiveness, and that's actually more like a client-server thing on the client side. But the thing is, like, cellular networks are really unreliable, and people are playing games in really, really strange places. So you need to be aware of that and try to keep your like user interfaces responsive anyway. So try to avoid things like loading screens if you can. Try to do your like client-server communication asynchronous, so that you kind of like anticipate the result on the client side and just go on instead of like blocking the user interface and waiting for a server response. Also, try to do like an offline mode if possible, because people will want to play your game on a plane. Now, and you can say that, okay, my game is like player versus player, so I can't really do that. But the thing is, what we do in Ruzzle is that it's turn-based. So when you have like a list of games where it's your turn, so we keep that cached in the client. So if you either start the game up in offline mode or you just run out of network somewhere, you can keep on playing. You can just go on and play your games. You can even start a chat conversation. You obviously won't get an answer since it's offline. But the thing is, as soon as the client actually goes online again, all those requests are just sent up to the server side. We get a response and we refresh the user interface. We did this originally just to have like a first-class player experience when you're on a bus or on a train. But it turns out that it's also invaluable if you actually have server problems. Because if your servers are overloaded, you will typically have like high latency issues, and you will have like high error rates on certain calls, things like that. These kinds of like asynchronous interfaces can hide these problems so that users don't really notice that you have problems. You should also think about that you should be able to like control the client-server interface from the server side, so that you on the server can throttle the communication and tell the clients to be less chatty with the servers if you have problems. Now, that's the things that we thought about when we did Ruzzle, and that helped us when we actually built our architecture. So I thought I'd go through and give like a sneak peek behind the scenes of how we actually have done things. So this is the architecture that we have. We have, like I said, we have like asynchronous interface between the clients and the server. The servers are built upon App Engine, so we have a set of APIs on App Engine that essentially handle things like the games, all the users, user list, chatting, etc. We send out push notifications. We do that directly from App Engine for like Android phones and Windows Phone. On iOS, we actually have like built our own gateway that we are running on Amazon, because when we did this, you couldn't do that on App Engine. You can now, so if we did it now, it would run on App Engine. But we, it kind of like just works, so we don't touch it. We also, like I said, generate tons and tons of events. So we stream them in real time into something called the Google BigQuery, which is Google's like data mining and analytics tool that they have. It's like a column-based SQL database system, which is pretty cool because it's like constant query time, but it scales linearly in cost. So you can do like a complex query of like something like 1 billion rows, and it finishes in like 13 seconds. And then you throw the same query with like 10 billion rows. It's still 13 seconds. It's just that it costs you more. So we essentially do like daily jobs and calculate things like retention, things like that automatically. And then we do like executive spreadsheets so that all the executives can see how the game performs day by day. And then we can also do like complex data mining directly in the raw events in BigQuery. So this is basically our architecture, and it has served us extremely well, so I can highly recommend it. But needs may vary, so there's a lot of options out there. But that's about it for me, I guess. The last thing I promised my bosses to say is that we are hiring. So if you have talent, you're willing to move to Stockholm, it's a beautiful city, just come and see me afterwards. Thank you very much. Questions?
We have time for a few questions. Okay, well, one question for me. But I noticed one of your advice, you said don't put a loading screen up there, which seems counterintuitive to me, the idea of if there's going to be a dodgy connection, you want to at least put something up there while the handshake's going on so that it seems responsive. What's the logic behind saying don't put up a loading screen?
Well, the idea is that ideally you can, ideally you should actually be able to let the user do other things while you're actually doing the loading. So that's what we do. I mean, if we, for example, if you play a game and you are submitting the results to the server side, we just go on, move on with the interface. And if you say that you have a friend list and you want to remove a friend from the friend list, we just do that locally, and then when we have connections, we send that request up to the server. The worst thing that can happen is that for one reason or another, that friend never got removed. But that's, who cares? It very seldom happens.
Yes, I was wondering how many of those options that you talked about, like the offline mode and the chat and the friends list, were like present in like the first version of Ruzzle, or did you add them like later on?
Almost everything was present in the first version. We added achievements later on. Actually leaderboards as well. Those were added like 2 weeks after. But the other stuff was there from the beginning.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, just one more question, and then we'll get the panel set up. Okay, we'll do 2 questions. Go on. Make them quick.
Hi. I'm wondering if your game is so viral, so what's your marketing strategy? Because do you need to acquire users if most of your traffic is viral?
Well, you can't rely on being viral. It's obviously helps if you're viral. So yes, we do acquire users as well. But what happened in the United States, we had planned to do some marketing in the United States, but we hadn't started. So that was just spontaneous.
What did you think was the key factor in the virality in the US?
First of all, it is a very addictive and sticky game. It has something in the gameplay which appeals to a very broad audience. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. But there have been different things in different countries. Like in Italy, Facebook was a large part of the virality. In the United States, it was Twitter. So it depends on a lot of what type of social channels people are using in different countries. So it's a good idea to have a broad support of different things that can support virality.
Thank you very much.
Thank
awesome
you.
Job.